We'll begin with this rose bush that was from the homestead originally that my Aunt Dorothy dug up. It has beautiful pink blooms. In a few weeks, you'll see lots of buds that are getting ready, developing. Here's another rose bush that my Uncle Ashley gave us that my parents had as well on their property, and so much was passed around from family members that we all have the same plants and shrubs in our yards, and they have many stories. This, for example, could have come from one of their aunts or uncles' places, so these have been around for some time. Here we have a couple of birds. A parent still feeding a young grackle. We'll walk over here toward a piece of slate. It is from, it's a discarded piece of slate from the rooftop of Gladstone Library, and it's, I brought it home. I thought it was kind of interesting. That's what's used for the roof. Welsh slate. Can't see the insignia that I put on there, but it's there. English buttercup is finished for this season. Grew up with California poppy. That's what we called it, but I think it's really Oriental poppy. And here's another plant that we started from the rose bush. Good to have more than one location. And another perennial from my Uncle Ashley that is called the ever-blooming aster, and that grows quite tall, and the bees just love that well into October. It's an old cast iron pot that I grew up with. Just painted it the other day, and that probably has a story that it's probably from my mother's grandmother, if I can think back far enough, that it certainly has a history. Here we have something called Golden Glow, which is a perennial that has some beautiful yellowish orange blossoms, and that plant spreads really quite a bit, so one has to keep that under control. It will take over the whole yard. This is what we call China Rose. Is another official name for it, but my Aunt Dorothy gave me that as well, and again I remember that from our homestead. And this is the flowering quince. The blooms are kind of orange on this one, but they're finished now and produce this fruit. It's certainly just beginning, so it's quite small. You can make quince jam or jelly, I guess, out of that. Quite a bit of light here. You can just see a little bit of the bloom, the tail end of the bloom. It's what we call the Caitlin tree that started with a small sprig when she was in kindergarten, and that was about 20 years ago. So this tree has done well. It's actually two. And this is what's called a life plant that grows just from a leaf. If you took off one of these leaves, this little indentations here, little roots will come. I'll see if I can find one that I've started elsewhere. And that's how it continues to grow. So these smaller plants down here, leaves have fallen off, and this is just an example of some flowers that I had taken to school and brought back home. So this is from Bermuda, and my aunt Ethel brought a leaf back from visiting family down there, and had one of these quite a few years ago, and then started another one back in 2007, and this is from that. So I brought a leaf back in my wallet. Essentially, that's how that started, and that's the third or fourth one. Gave my uncle one. His grew quite tall, and he was able to actually get a blossom from it. These are iris, and they're just finished off this after blooming for 3 weeks. And this one is very unique because it smells like grape bubblegum, if you've ever had that. So that was really well in bloom. We find that this bed has a lot of roots from these trees, so it's a bit of a struggle for things to grow well here. Whenever I dig, I come upon roots, but things seem to be going well here this year. This wisteria bloomed once, and maybe it'll bloom again someday. This is what we call the Gary tree, and this started off just as a very small, 18 inches. He brought it from his cottage, and that was maybe about 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. So this evergreen has grown quite well. See the waxwing, getting a bit of alpaca. Okay, and this is another small tree that we've started that came from my niece and her husband's wedding, and that was just a small sprig they were giving out to guests. So by small sprig, I mean just a small piece like that, a little bit wider, but so that's done well. And here we have the rose bush. This is really lots of blooms on this each year. See if we can get a better shot here. The sun is very bright, which is nice, so there's no complaints. And this is a beautiful scent. There. It's very, you can just walk by it and smell it. The bees love it as well. I forget the name of this, but the bees also like this. It's just beginning to bloom. And that came from my Aunt Dorothy's yard as well. We have a couple of non-flowering currant bushes. This is one of them. Just moved that a few weeks ago, and it's doing well. So we went back here to what I like to call hosta land. There's some hostas, and really like the leaves on this one. It's so large. Very pretty. Hostas are very hearty. And of course some delphinium. This has been a challenging bed here where it faces north. But we were able to find some grasses that have weathered the winter and do well. See if we can find one of those life plant leaves that I tried to start here. And here we have it. You can see some of those little roots just starting there in the indentation. So that's really a great part of the marvelous work that we see. In creation and ministration. Beautiful. Well, that's all for now. Thanks for listening and watching.